I collapsed on the kitchen floor, dizzy, my lungs begging for air, while my brother stood over me and shouted, "We don't owe you anything!" For 10 years, I juggled 3 jobs to keep this family afloat. I skipped meals so Jacob could eat, slept in stairwells between shifts, and paid off debts I didn't make. But nothing prepared me for what I uncovered next. A secret so calculated, so cold. It made every sacrifice feel like a setup. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's the day I stopped surviving for them and started fighting for me. I used to think I was the lucky one. My friends envied how close my family seemed. Sunday barbecues on our backyard deck, Mom's famous lemon pie, Dad's off-key karaoke renditions of 80s hits. Jacob, my younger brother, always had everyone laughing. And I was the glue, the responsible one, the achiever, the one who paid for the laughter. At work, I was the assistant manager of a medical supply company. In the evenings, I bartended at a hotel lounge. Weekends, I picked up freelance data entry to cover the gaps. Every dollar I earned went to the family pot, a joint account set up to help us all thrive together. Only it didn't feel like thriving. It felt like treading water while everyone else sipped cocktails poolside. Still, I smiled. I showed up. I believed. Mum would hug me and whisper, "You're our miracle, Emily." And I held on to that. I clung to her pride like a lifeboat, letting it pull me through sleepless nights and overdue bills. Jacob, meanwhile, played video games until noon and spent the rest of the day working on himself. I never questioned it. He had anxiety, according to Mum. He just needed time. One sunny afternoon in May, I came home from a 12-hour shift and found a ribbon-wrapped key on the kitchen counter. "Surprise!" Mum beamed, holding up her phone to record my reaction. "We got Jacob a car, so he can get out more, build confidence. Isn't it great?" I stared at the key, then at Jacob, smirking like he'd just won the lottery. "What did you use to buy it?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Oh, don't worry," Mum said, brushing me off with a laugh. "We used the family fund, you know, the one we all contribute to." But we all didn't include Jacob. He hadn't contributed a cent in years. I didn't argue. Not then, not in front of the cameras. I just nodded, swallowed the bitterness, and went to my room. That night, I opened my banking app and felt my stomach twist. $8,000. Gone. No discussion. No warning? Still, I told myself it was fine. Just another sacrifice, just one more thing I could carry. The real crack came a week later, with an email. It was from a credit agency regarding a loan I'd allegedly taken out 3 months earlier for $5,000. I froze. I hadn't applied for any loan. But there it was, my name, my social security number, my digital signature. Only it wasn't my signature. The more I dug, the more I realized how deep the rot ran. The loan had been approved using documents Jacob could only have accessed from our home office. He had pretended to be me. He'd stolen from me, and no one, not Mum, not Dad, had said a word. I printed everything, highlighted it. I planned to confront them. That night at dinner, I placed the email on the table beside the mashed potatoes. "Anyone care to explain this?" I asked, my voice calm. Too calm. Jacob looked up from his phone. "What's that?" "A loan. In my name. With forged documents." He blinked, then shrugged. "Must be a mistake," Dad chuckled. "Emily, don't be so dramatic. You always jump to conclusions." Mum didn't even look at the paper. "Jacob said he didn't do it. That's enough for me." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just stared at them, realizing for the first time how invisible I truly was. They didn't see me. They saw a resource, a means to an end, a well that would never run dry. That night, I sat in bed holding an old photo of us, me, Jacob, and our parents, all smiling at Disneyland. The edges were frayed, the colours fading, just like my belief in this family. If you were me, what would you do? Would you scream, demand justice, call the police? Or would you, like I did, swallow the betrayal, tell yourself it wasn't worth the fight, and keep going? Because that's what I did. I went to work the next day. I smiled at customers. I made cocktails and cleaned tables. I kept the family afloat. But I didn't know that day was the last time I'd ever believe sacrifice was love. The morning after I confronted my family, I woke up to an envelope slid under my bedroom door. Inside was a document labelled Household Contribution Agreement. It outlined a new rule. All working members of the family were to contribute a minimum of 60% of their monthly income to a newly created Family Growth Fund. The fund was registered under Jacob's name. I laughed. Short, brittle, the kind of sound you make when reality bends too far. I waited for someone to say it was a joke. No one did. At dinner, I asked Mum, "Why is Jacob the account holder?" "He needs the responsibility," she said, sipping her wine. "You're good with structure. He's not." "And why 60%? "We all have to make sacrifices," she said without irony. Jacob didn't look up from his phone. When I hesitated to sign, Dad leaned in, voice low. "You know we wouldn't have the house without you. This is just streamlining things." Streamlining. Like I was a department to be restructured. I signed. Not because I agreed, but because fighting meant more tension, more silence. And I'd already been made the villain once. 2 weeks later, I came home to find Jacob hosting a poker night. 5 men I didn't know lounged on the couch, drinking beer and throwing chips on the coffee table. Music blasted. Smoke filled the living room. "What is this?" I asked. "Team building," Jacob grinned. I asked Mum about it the next day. She just smiled. "He needs outlets, Emily. You, of all people, should understand." She always said things like that, framed concern as guilt, wrapped judgment in soft tones, the kind of emotional blackmail that took years to unravel. One night while helping her in the kitchen, I asked her, "Did you ever feel trapped when you were my age?" She paused, then set the knife down. "I dropped out of school to take care of my little brother. He had asthma. Your grandma didn't lift a finger, so yes, I felt trapped, but someone had to do it." It clicked then. I wasn't her daughter. I was her redo, her second chance to get it right, but this time with control. "You're not a prisoner," she added, as if reading my thoughts. "No one's forcing you. You choose this every day." Gaslighting, perfect and polished. That night, unable to sleep, I paced the hallway and noticed the faint blue light under Jacob's door. I leaned closer and heard whispers, his voice and hers. Curiosity turned into instinct. I grabbed the baby monitor we never used anymore. It still worked, and left one piece near their door, the other in my room. The next evening I heard it. "You have to let her think she's helping us," Mum said, her voice low but clear. "Let her believe she's important. She'll keep giving as long as she feels needed." Jacob laughed. "She really thinks she's the backbone of this house. All she does is work and mope." "Exactly," Mum said. "She needs to believe it matters. That's how you keep her going." I sat frozen. My heartbeat wasn't a beat anymore, it was a war drum. The next morning, I skipped work for the first time in 6 years. I stayed in bed, playing the recording over and over, letting the betrayal soak into bone. Later that week, I opened Facebook and saw Jacob live streaming from the living room. "I'm living off my family," he said, lounging back. "And my sister? She lives for appearances. She wants to be a martyr. Let her." He laughed again, and the comments piled up. "Yo, she dumb as hell. Get that bread, bro." I clicked out, hands trembling. 3 days after, I walked into the bathroom and found a pink bra that wasn't mine hanging on the shower knob. A girl's voice came from Jacob's room. I knocked. No answer. I walked in. He and a girl I'd never seen were eating takeout in bed, the TV blaring, my stomach turned, not from jealousy but from recognition. The necklace she wore, it was mine, a gift from an ex, taken from my drawer. "Get out," I said. "Relax," Jacob rolled his eyes. "You're not the only one who lives here," I told Mum later. She sighed, exasperated. "Emily, you're always so intense. He's just trying to have a normal life." That night, I opened a blank notebook and wrote on the first page, "Dead quiet." It became my journal, a place where I recorded every slight, every silence, every moment they made me feel insane for asking for decency. April the 3rd. Mum told me I need to loosen up after I asked Jacob not to smoke inside. April 7th. Dad said I'm not fun anymore. April 9th. Jacob changed the Wi-Fi password and said it was a family joke. April 11th. I realised I hadn't been hugged in 6 months. If someone asked me then, "Who do you feel most alone with?" I would have said, "The ones who see me every day." That's the cruelty of it. Loneliness isn't about absence. It's about proximity without connection. It started with a migraine that refused to quit. Then came the tunnel vision, the shortness of breath, the numbness in my hands. I was at the register, ringing up latex gloves, when everything turned white and I dropped to the floor. I remember flashes, voices, a cold floor, someone calling my name. Then nothing. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed, an IV in my arm. The nurse told me I'd collapsed from exhaustion and dehydration. My phone was dead. My purse had been taken to the front desk. The only person listed as my emergency contact was a co-worker from my first job, Karen. She came. Not my family, not Jacob, not Mum, just Karen, who I hadn't seen in months. "I saw your name on the chart and rushed over," she said, her voice cracking. I thought, "Emily, what happened to you?" I couldn't answer. I didn't know where to begin. After I was discharged, I took a cab home. The house was quiet, save for the faint hum of Jacob's music upstairs. No one greeted me. "No, are you okay?" "No, we were worried." I passed the living room and saw Mum on the phone, her voice low. "She's cracking," she said. "No, I'm serious. She's almost there. Just let her burn out. Then we'll figure it out." I froze. "She's close. Let her think we're still supporting her. That's the trick. She'll come back crawling." I didn't move. My heart didn't beat. I didn't breathe. I backed away slowly, afraid that if she saw me, I'd break something, glass, a wall, her face. In my room, I curled into a ball, shoes still on, and stared at the ceiling. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. I couldn't tell. Later that night, I checked Jacob's social media. His latest Instagram story showed a blurred selfie in the kitchen, middle finger raised, with the caption, "Some people think they're angels, but really they're just ATMs with feelings." It didn't tag me, but it didn't need to. I was the only one in the house who worked, the only one who gave, the only one who fell and wasn't missed. That night, my email pinged. The sender was anonymous. The subject line, "It's worse than you think." Inside was a single sentence. "They planned this from the start." Attached was an audio file. I didn't open it. Not yet. My hands were shaking too hard. The next morning, I went to the clinic for a follow-up. After a long wait and an even longer survey, the doctor leaned forward and said gently, "Emily, you're showing signs of major depressive disorder. You need rest, time off, a break." She wrote me a medical leave notice, 3 months, mandatory. I came home with the note in my hand and no idea how to explain it. Before I could speak, Dad said over his coffee, "Your mother and I were talking. The market's hot right now. We're thinking of selling the house." I blinked. "What?" "To give Jacob a better shot," Mom said, breezing in from the hallway. "He needs stability, maybe a condo, something downtown. He's been so patient." "With what?" I asked. "With life," she said, and sipped her tea like that made any goddamn sense. I walked away before I screamed. In the bathroom, I stared at my reflection. My eyes were bloodshot, skin pale, lips cracked. I didn't look like myself. I didn't look like anyone. I leaned in closer and whispered, "Who are you?" No one answered. That night, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a delivery driver with a bag of food I didn't order. "Emily?" he asked. I nodded. "Someone sent this, said you needed it." There was no note, just hot soup and a chocolate chip cookie. I thanked him. He smiled. "You okay?" he asked. And that, just those 2 words, broke me. I didn't cry at the hospital. I didn't cry when I heard my mother's voice slice through me like a blade. I didn't cry at Jacob's mockery, but I cried then because someone asked, because someone saw me. The video found me, not the other way around. I was lying in bed, wrapped in silence, letting YouTube autoplay through background noise when I heard the title spoken aloud, "Narcissistic Families, the Demand Withdraw Trap." The words made me sit up. In the video, a calm therapist described a cycle, one where a person is conditioned to give constantly, only to be punished or ignored when they ask for anything in return. "They don't reject your love," she said. "They reject your needs. They want your devotion, not your humanity." I watched it twice. Then I watched 15 more. I binged every video, every article, every post I could find on emotional enmeshment, gaslighting, covert narcissism, family systems. The terminology wasn't just theory, it was autobiography. For the first time in my life, I had language for the ache in my bones. I opened the audio file from the anonymous email. It was a phone call, old, crackly, recorded without consent. Mum's voice. "She's too stubborn to quit. Let her drown herself. We'll clean up later." Jacob. "What if she figures it out?" Mum. "She won't. She thinks helping us is her purpose." I listened again, then again, until the words etched themselves onto my skin like scars. The next morning, I created a folder on my laptop, survival file. Inside, I placed copies of every transaction, screenshots of every mocking post, texts, emails, and the audio clip. I started recording every conversation. I used apps to automatically save calls. I began writing summaries of each day, who said what they denied, what they demanded. It wasn't revenge, not yet. It was insurance, a paper trail of pain, just in case. That night, another email arrived. Subject, "I see you." There was a name, Melissa, my cousin, the one who had vanished a decade ago. Family law said she got into drugs and ran off. The truth? She ran away from them, from this. Her email was short. I know what they did. What they still do. They did it to me too. "You're not crazy, Emily. You're just awake. If you want help, I'm here. M." I stared at the screen for an hour. Then I wrote back, "Thank you. I think I'm ready to leave. I just don't know how." Within a day, she responded with a list: safe housing options, legal advice links, a trauma-informed therapist directory. I printed it all, stored it in a book I kept hidden in my closet. I deleted the Family Growth Fund app and opened a new account in my name only. Transferred $2,000 in secret. I started packing small bags, one drawer at a time. I moved old clothes into a duffel and stashed it under my bed. My laptop, chargers, IDs went into a messenger bag. Each night, I erased my digital footprints a little more, cleared browser history, logged out of shared devices, changed passwords. I asked my college roommate, Jasmine, a paralegal, if she knew someone discreet. 2 days later, I had the number of a lawyer who specialized in financial abuse within families. I texted, "Name's Emily. Need help, quietly." She replied, "Meet Thursday, 2 p.m. Bring proof." Then the sixth twist. I received a letter in the mail addressed to me, but the envelope had Jacob's handwriting. It was from a collections agency. Jacob had taken out 2 online payday loans using my name. One had defaulted. I saw red, I saw white, I saw nothing. I didn't confront him. Instead, I added the letter to the folder and opened a new Google Doc titled Final Letter. I wrote, "Family isn't blood, it's breath. If I can't breathe, I'm not home. You used me, drained me, and when I broke, you blamed the break on me. I'm leaving, not to punish you, but to finally meet myself." I printed it, folded it, taped it shut. On Thursday morning, I sent a text from a prepaid number to my mother. "Hi, Mum, I've scheduled a legal consultation about the financial records. You'll want to be there. 2 p.m., room 305, Stratton and Hale." I turned off the phone, threw away the SIM, then I zipped up my duffel, grabbed the letter, and walked out the front door. Not a single soul noticed. I didn't run, I left with intention. At 2:43 a.m., I slipped out the front door the same way I had walked through it every day for a decade, quietly, unseen. Only this time, I wasn't carrying groceries or guilt. I was carrying closure. I left behind a USB drive on the kitchen counter, wrapped in a sticky note. "Watch this." The video was 12 minutes long. No music, no filters, just me, sitting on my bed, the only light coming from a desk lamp. I didn't cry at first. I spoke clearly, slowly, with the voice I'd been told was too intense for family discussions. I told the truth. I showed screenshots, documents, emails, and audio recordings. I played the voicemail from Mum, where she laughed about letting me break. I zoomed in on Jacob's forged loans. I read from my journal, moments of silence so sharp they still bled. And then, finally, I cried. Not because I wanted sympathy, because it was the only thing left to give. I ended the video with a single line, "I am not your scapegoat anymore." I uploaded the file to a private cloud. I sent it to Melissa. I left a copy with my lawyer, and I went to sleep in a rented apartment 2 cities away, where the walls didn't echo with manipulation. What I didn't expect was the neighbour, Mrs. Langford, Mum's friend, once her brunch partner, now estranged, must have found the USB. Or maybe she was sent the link by mistake. Either way, the video ended up on Facebook. Within 2 days, it had 46,000 views. By the end of the week, it was over 500,000. I watched it all unfold from a distance. The comments, the threads, the shares. This happened to me too. Families like this destroy people from the inside out. Protect Emily at all costs. My family didn't protect me, but the internet, ironically, did. Back at home, chaos bloomed. My parents panicked. Jacob scrubbed his accounts, but it was too late. The receipts were real, the recordings damning, the evidence undeniable. They tried calling, texting, emailing. I ignored them. Then the inevitable rage. Mom posted a furious rant. "My daughter is mentally unstable. This is a delusion. We've supported her for years." The post backfired. Because someone, likely Melissa, leaked hospital documentation proving Mom had altered parts of my medical records to avoid a family intervention when I first collapsed. Twist exposed. The mask shattered. People started asking harder questions. Why did Jacob have access to Emily's bank accounts? Why was a woman working 3 jobs supporting a household of 3 adults? Why were so many documents forged, and by whom? And suddenly it wasn't a family dispute anymore. It was potential fraud. The state launched an inquiry into identity theft and financial abuse. Jacob was summoned for questioning. My lawyer advised me not to respond publicly. I obeyed. But the silence didn't feel like suppression anymore. It felt like power. I didn't need to scream. Others were doing it for me now. Influencers stitched my video. Psychologists analysed it. Activists shared resources beneath it. A therapist posted, "This isn't an isolated case. This is systemic. This is why so many victims go silent." And yet, through it all, I said nothing. Until I saw the headline, "Estranged Daughter's Viral Video Sparks National Conversation on Familial Abuse." My face was blurred, my voice distorted in segments, but the message was clear. I didn't destroy my family's reputation. They did. I just stopped hiding it. When my lawyer forwarded me an email from a talk show producer, I declined. When a publisher reached out about a memoir, I paused, but declined too. Not yet. I wasn't ready to turn my pain into profit, not while the wounds were still fresh. Instead, I donated anonymously to a non-profit that supported women escaping toxic family dynamics. In the donation note, I wrote, "For every woman who was told her suffering was just family drama." The house was eventually sold, not to fund Jacob's condo, but to pay off the legal fees and pending restitution. Last I heard, my father moved in with his brother. Mum stayed with a distant cousin. Jacob? No one's really sure. Rumours say he left the state. But me? I started walking every morning, breathing without permission. I adopted a rescue dog named Willow, who sleeps by my side and never asks me for anything except presents. Sometimes I still flinch when I hear a phone buzz. Sometimes I cry in grocery store aisles for no reason. But I also laugh, and sleep, and write. And on days I feel brave, I open the file titled "The Day I Chose Me" and read my letter again. Because once I was a ghost inside a golden cage. Now I'm real. I didn't want revenge. I wanted meaning. 6 months after the video went viral, I registered Out of Blood as a non-profit, an organisation for women navigating toxic family ties. Our slogan, "Family should feel safe, not sacred." We started small, an online forum, weekly Zoom support groups, downloadable guides on boundary setting and financial independence. Within a month, we had over 12,000 members. By the end of the year, we had chapters in 4 cities. I led workshops, spoke at trauma conferences, and sat on panels about familial coercion. Not as a survivor, though I was, but as someone who could finally say the words without shaking. The night everything came full circle, I was leading a group in a community centre in Portland. A woman in her late 50s stayed behind afterward. She looked tired, as if decades had been etched into her face by people who never had to earn her love. She pulled me into a hug, trembled. "My daughter left 2 years ago, said I was part of her pain. I didn't understand. Until I saw your video," she whispered. "You saved her, Emily. You brought her back to me." I nodded, speechless. Sometimes healing echoes, sometimes forgiveness travels backward. A week later, a letter arrived. The handwriting was familiar, rounded, rushed, masculine. Jacob. I considered throwing it away. I didn't. Inside, he wrote, "Emily, I know I don't deserve your time. I know I hurt you. They turned me into something twisted, but I let it happen. I've lost everything. If you still have space for me in your world, I just need to know where to go. I have nowhere else." I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Not because I forgave him, because I finally didn't owe him anything. The real closure came not from confrontation, but from silence, from not replying, from not needing to. Later that month, I was invited to speak at a publishing summit. A literary agent approached me afterward and said, "What if you turned your survival into a blueprint?" I said yes. The book was titled "When Family Hurts, Breaking Free from Blood That Binds." It wasn't a memoir, it was a mirror. For others to see themselves clearly, maybe for the first time. Each chapter traced a stage: denial, enmeshment, awakening, resistance, flight, flourish. I didn't write to relive, I wrote to remember and remind. By the time the book reached number 2 in Practical Psychology on Amazon, I had stopped checking rankings. Validation no longer needed a number. Readers sent messages, thousands. Some were 2 words. Thank you. Others were pages long, full of stories too familiar. Girls who gave up college to raise siblings, sons who went no contact with mothers who called it betrayal, adults who still flinched when the phone rang. One girl wrote, "I found your book in a thrift store. It kept me from going back. You didn't save me. You reminded me I could save myself." I printed that message, taped it to my bathroom mirror. One morning I stood at the edge of the Pacific. The sun hadn't risen yet, but the sky was already promising to try. The wind was cold, tugging at my hair, but it didn't sting. I closed my eyes and inhaled deeply. I thought about who I used to be, the girl who over-functioned, over-apologized, over-bled for people who underloved her. She wasn't weak. She was hopeful, too hopeful maybe, but never broken. I sat down in the sand. Beside me, Willow, my dog, dug a shallow hole, then laid down in it, tail flicking sand at my legs. I laughed, a full belly laugh. And then I cried, not because I was sad, because I had made it. Not just out of the house, out of the cage, out of the cycle. The wind calmed, the sky warmed, and in the quiet that followed, I smiled, not to be polite, not to prove I was okay, but because for the first time in my life, I was.